Naba is a material event, something physical, something tangible, something you can see and touch. That's what a Naba is. So when Allah speaks of the next life and resurrection as Naba, He's referring to its tangible nature. There are other religions who feel that the afterlife is some kind of a spiritual, intangible kind of thing. But even by the use of the word Naba, we know it is real, it's physical, and it's not a state of mind, it's actually a state, it's a place. That the Jannah and Nar are actual places. They're not just, figments of the imagination or places in our mind. Anyhow, so this is عَنِ النَّبَإِ الْعَظِيمِ. Are they really asking about this enormous, and now Naba is enormous in and of itself, but Allah adds azim to it, as an adjective, as a sifa to it. So is it true that they're actually asking one another in this sarcastic tone about that enormous event? About that enormous news that is supposed to lead them to some kind of action, and yet instead of leading them to action, it's leading them to make this kind of ridicule as far as this news. And then Allah adds another rhetorical question. All of this is rhetorical questions so far. الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ. الَّذِي actually is called ism sila, okay, ism mawsul rather, and hum fihi mukhtalifun in grammar is called silatul mawsul. All of this is an adjective of a naba. So the next ayah number 3, is actually the whole ayah is an adjective of the word an-naba. The first adjective is al-azim, and the second adjective is alladhi hum fihi mukhtalifun. And a coarse translation is that which they are themselves in disagreement in or with. Okay, they're among themselves, they are in disagreement in regards to this news. But the way the ayah is structured is in the ismiya form, in the nominal form. The benefit this has is, what this tells us is, this is something they're doing all the time. That this disagreement that they have among each other, Allah Azza wa Jal, for example, didn't say الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِيهِ يَخْتَلِفُونَ. He said الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ. The ism fa'il is used. And the noun usage indicates something that's going on constantly. Like a noun is permanent and a verb is temporary. Then the word fihi, this prepositional phrase, is been positioned in between hum and mukhtalifun. Instead of Allah saying الَّذِينَ هُمْ مُخْتَلِفُونَ فِيهِ, which is norm in Arabic, Allah says الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ. And what this produces is a shock. Is it really about that they are disagreeing among themselves? Now the word ikhtilaf, a little bit about it and we move forward inshaAllah ta'ala. Is it really about this tremendous news that they are disagreeing among themselves in? The word ikhtilaf, it indicates two things. It indicates a manifest disagreement, meaning they're actually physically disagreeing among each other. What this tells us is not only were they being sarcastic about akhirah, they all had their own theories too. Some of them had the idea, okay, we're not going to come back. Some of them had the idea we're all going to go to heaven. Some of them had the idea, well, Allah has created so many huge things, the heavens, the earth, so many, stars in the heavens, etc., etc. How is He going to be busy with every little thing I did every single day? Who's going to keep track of all that? It's not going to be like that. He's going to let us go. He's going to let things slide. Some of them had the idea, but no, we believe that, ma'adallah, that Allah has daughters that are the angels. They're going to take care of us. They'll put in a good word for us, so even though we've messed up, we'll be alright. We're not going to be in this kind of trouble that he's talking about. Yeah, he'll be mad at some people who didn't have the intermediaries, the people to put in a good word for him. This idea even exists today in life. It doesn't stem from just from religion, from life in general. Like, if you're not a good employee, but you're good friends with the manager, then you're hoping that the manager will keep you hired, even if the boss is complaining, because you're good with the manager. You don't have to deal with the boss. Who's going to deal with him? The guy in the middle, right? That's the idea. That's the mentality. I don't have to face the consequences of my actions. Somebody else will deal with it for me because I know I got connections higher up. That's the idea, right? And that's really the basis of shirk. It's a lack of responsibility. You don't want to be responsible for your own actions. You put an intermediary in between. That's really the psychology of shirk. Anyhow, so they have these different kinds of opinions about themselves, but ikhtilaf also means to have a discord or friction within one's own self. What this implies is not only did they disagree with each other, but within themselves there was uncertainty or disagreement. Sometimes they would think this, sometimes they would think that. They're not so sure. It's not like they're adamant about no, for sure there's no afterlife, or for sure we're going to be saved. They're not sure either. They're not sure. So even within themselves there's a disagreement that is taking place, and that's what Allah Azza wa Jalla depicts with these words. Then He says, كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. This has been repeated, and oftentimes it's argued that this repetition takes place only for the purpose of mubalagha, which in English is called hyperbole, to emphasize something. The Old English translation of كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ is, nay, they're going to soon find out. Nay. Then again, nay, they will soon find out. This is how it's commonly translated. Let's first explore the word kalla and then we'll talk about the repetition. Kalla, according to Sibawayh and some other grammarians, mostly from Basra, they believe that this has to do with the word rada' or stop. Meaning whatever you're talking about, stop. You're going to find out very soon. So you put it in that context, right? They're running their mouth and all of a sudden Allah says stop. You're going to find out very soon. So that's one opinion on what kalla means. Another opinion, which is stronger actually from the language point of view, depends on where kalla is used. If you say kalla and you pause and then you say saya'lamun, it means something. But if you say kalla saya'lamun together, then it means something else. Now if you say kalla and you pause and then you say saya'lamun, like these grammarians argue in these ayat, it is jaiz, it is allowed that you stop at kalla and then you say saya'lamun. To produce that meaning, stop. Stop your nonsense. Stop this ridiculous argument. All of you be quiet. Nonsense. And then you're soon about to find out. Saya'lamun. Or they're about to find out rather. But on the other hand, if you continue and you don't stop, which is what the text of the ayah is, there's no waqf. Generally on ijma', there's no waqf in the ayah, then the meaning of kalla is associated with haqqan. Truly you're going to find out. Like in English usage, we say something like, oh no man, I'm going to be in real trouble. What does that mean? It doesn't mean, oh no man, it means really I'm going to be in trouble. But you're using no in a way to emphasize or to hyperbolize your statement. Okay? No, for real. So you use the word no, but you don't really mean no. You mean actually, really, certainly. That's how it's used in classical Arabic also. So here, kalla say'alamun, the reality is, soon they're going to find out. Thumma kalla say'alamun, no, again, the reality is very soon they're going to find out. The sa is short for sofa, and it implies that whatever's coming is very close. And Allah makes sure that we understand that it's close by the scene here, and at the end of this surah, inna anzarnakum adaban qariba. We're warning you of a punishment that is close. So closeness here with the scene, and closeness at the end with the word qarib itself manifest. Now, let's talk now about the repetition of the word saya'lamun or the ayat. Kalla saya'lamun, thumma kalla saya'lamun. One argument, once again, is that this is takrar lil mubalagha. This is repetition to hyperbolize, so to illustrate Allah's anger with them, that they're going to find out, Now this is the way we speak also. I'm going to get you, man. I'm going to get you, man. You say it twice when you're really angry. Okay? Or if you're really in a tense situation, you don't just say wait. You say wait. Right? You say it twice. So the idea in language generally, and also in classical Arabic, when you repeat something twice, it illustrates anger or tension or friction or something like that. So that's one opinion. The other opinion, which actually a lot of the mufassirun have taken, and seems more appropriate here, is consistent with the arguments in the rest of Qur'an. As far as the Qur'an's warnings are concerned, the warnings are of two events. Two things. One is resurrection, the day of judgment, all the events surrounding resurrection. And the second is the hellfire, one leading to the other. But the two predominant warnings are resurrection and qiyamah, and then an-nar. So there's a lot of description in the Qur'an of resurrection day, and there's a lot of description for hellfire. So it is believed that the first one, you're really going to find out, that first one is referring to qiyamah, and the second one is referring to hellfire. So first you're going to realize how wrong you were and how obnoxious you were in the way you were talking about the akhirah. The first time you will truly realize this, when you face qiyamah. And the second time, when you face the hellfire. These are the two places where you really get to know. Right? So this is again the tafsir of why there is repetition between these two things. The final comment on this kalla say'alamun and thumma kalla say'alamun also. There's an axiom, man mata faqad qamat qiyamatuhu. Whoever dies, well, his qiyamah has already started. Whoever dies, his qiyamah has already begun. For him, he doesn't have to wait until all the signs of the hour are done and the generations have passed and the sun rises from the west, etc., etc. He doesn't have to wait for all that. His case is done. He's already seen what's coming. Like example, Ali radiallahu anhu used to say, "An-nasu niyam." The people are sleeping. The people are sleeping, and when they die, this is when they wake up. Right? So in that sense, yes, immediately when a person dies, they'll really find out the consequences of the words they were uttering. Now, this, by the way, was the first passage of this surah. عَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ النَّبَإِ الْعَظِيمِ الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. Before we go on to understand one thing about the style of the Qur'an, one of the elements of Quranic studies is as-Saj'a al-Qur'ani, which is Quranic rhyme scheme. Right? You have عَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ, عن النبأ العظيم. This kind of breaks the rhyme scheme a little bit. الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون. Everything seemed to rhyme except one ayah, which was عن النبأ العظيم. And if you study the grammar of the ayah, you'll find that that ayah connected to the next ayah is actually one sentence. عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون is one text. And to illustrate that that text isn't complete in and of itself, even phonetically it breaks. It breaks. Al-Azim is a break from, it's a departure from the rest of the continuation of the text. So now, one of the remarkable features of the Quran in many, many, many cases is that the rhyme scheme actually tells you where a paragraph ends or begins. Now notice, عَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عن النبأ العظيم الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون. Now look at the next few ayat. Just listen to them. ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا. You notice a new rhyme scheme? Right? And you will notice as we study the subject matter, it is a different subject altogether. It is connected to this, but it's a different matter, and it will be tied back together again. Now, again, because we're trying to study and appreciate the surah in how it's a cohesive whole and a cohesive argument, you need to understand this iltifat, this transition to another subject, which seems almost unrelated. For example, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا, easy translation, did we not turn the earth, did we not make the earth into a plain, a smooth plain for you? Mihad actually comes, another word related with mihad is al-mahd. Al-mahd is the cradle, or even the womb of the mother. Okay? Or the cradle in which the child is comfortable. Allah says, didn't we make the earth a place where you may be comfortable? Also, mihad is used in classical Arabic for a bed. So it's a place where you rest. This is the place where you find peace, where you find tranquility, right? So Allah talks about His favors now, and as you will continue, we'll see Allah's favors and His creations being talked about. But what does that have to do with resurrection? What does that have to do with their criticism? You see, by and large, their criticism was the things you're talking about, this life after death, this sun and moon colliding together, the earth cracking open and the earth spilling out whatever, وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا, all these big things you're talking about, they sound too monumental. Nobody's ever seen anything like that happening. And what kind of God is this capable of all of these things? Now, human beings are very aware of what things they themselves are capable of. Right? We're capable of making a bed for ourselves. We're capable of maybe building a house for ourselves, etc., etc. Now you will find a discussion of how Allah's capability in your own visual experience, how it surpasses your own. So this is actually a comparison of one's own works, one's manufactured works, in comparison to some of the creations of Allah. Look at what you're able to make for yourself and compare that to the entire creation of the earth. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا. Then we're able to construct monuments and structures and things like this, or we're able to pitch tents. Literally we pitch tents. In the old times we pitch tents. Allah says, وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا. And there's a lot of scientific discussion about وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا. I'm not going to go into the scientific route. I'm going to just illustrate to you the language point of view. Allah says, didn't we make the mountains or install the mountains as pegs? And awtad was used, for example, وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ also, we find in the Quran. We're going to see this in a surah later on. And Fir'aun, who is known by his awtad, his pegs, because his thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers would march, and they would camp out, and when the soldiers camp out somewhere, what do? They set up these pegs and these tents. So a tent is known by the most important element of the tent, which is what? The peg. And this is a feature of Arabic. You call something by its most essential component, right? So you can actually call a warrior a sword, because that's his most essential thing, right? So a tent is called also a peg in classical Arabic only because that is the most important. If you don't have the peg, the tent is gone. Allah says, you're able to pitch these tents. Let me show you the kinds of tents I pitch. What are the kinds of tents? وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا. What comparison do you have in your imagination to what Allah Azza wa Jalla is capable of? Then we speak. Now, these are big things, but now let's look within the human being's own creation. وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. And we created you, all of you, this maf'ul bihi kum, all of you, azwajan, this is hal, in the state of pairs. You didn't pair yourselves. You didn't create